Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today I have Filip Keuppens on the line, and he is Global VP of the Pickle Juice Company. Filip, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. It's great to be here.
All right, so I'm excited to learn more about the Pickle Juice Company and really what you're doing. I mean, when I saw the website, I saw the brand, I'm like, man, there's a great story behind this, and I can't wait to bring it to my audience. But before we get into that, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Filip, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Filip, what mission matters to you?
The mission that matters to me most is bringing products to market that take a comprehensive approach, that deliver on needs to consumers and deliver a product that makes a difference, that is what it claims to be, and that operates in a completely transparent fashion without relying on manipulated marketing shtick.
Yeah. It's awesome. Love bringing mission-based individuals on the line to share why they do what they do and, the heart behind it. So great having you on the show. And just get us kicked off. So tell us a little bit more about your background. Like, how did you get on this journey to the Pickle Juice Company?
Sure. My background was sales and marketing with very large companies in the CPG space, mostly some food and beverage, some home entertainment. Yeah. If you guys remember what DVDs used to be, I was in that space for a while. And then if I'm being completely honest, I sort of fell into the hyperfunctional space. I'm pretty involved in sports, or I used to be very active in sports and competing in rugby and freestyle skiing and stuff like that. And really took an interest in sports nutrition and functional nutrition. And as I was transitioning out of the home entertainment space, because the physical goods component of that sort of became obsolete, I sort of ended up in this space accidentally as I was consulting and became really fascinated with it, found that it was like super compelling and interesting and new and really science-based, which all those things are exciting to me. And that's kind of, fast forward 6 years and here we are.
Wow. I like how this happens. Like these zigs and zags in life, like sometimes lead us to our mission and lead us to where we find that calling and what we're drawn to. I mean, so you were an athlete and you're working in this space, obviously as a participant, as an athlete. And then you get the opportunity to kind of pair what you like doing also with the passion. Like what draws you to this whole space in general? Because I feel like it's unique.
Sure. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's being drawn to eventually something that you're passionate about, right? Rather than something that you're willing to accept. So I think that if we allow our journey to be kind of flowing and open and we seek things other than what are traditionally defined as success, more validation and directional worth and leaving an imprint, we usually end up in the space that we're, that we're passionate about, because you naturally gravitate towards those things, right? Yeah. So I think that's kind of how I ended up here. Yeah.
It's interesting the way it happens, but I see it time and time again as I speak to, executives from different walks of life. And we kind of, we have these discussions, do these interviews, and it's just like, man, how were you drawn to that? And it's like, man, I don't know. It just kind of like matched up and drew and before I knew it, like I grew the career, I did this and this and this. We grew the company to whatever XYZ revenue was their level of success. And you just see these things happen. I just think the evolution is in the process is interesting. And so I know there's some people, let's just say, that'll be watching this. Maybe they're just graduating college, or they're a little bit younger and they're not quite as far along in their career as you are. What kind of things would you tell them, just kind of based on that journey and finding yourself through that career?
I think be patient with the process. It doesn't happen overnight. But at the same time, pursue things that you genuinely care about. and understand the difference between a compromise in principle and a compromise in and something that's just pragmatism based, right? Because a lot of times people struggle to figure out the difference between the two. So we make little things out of big things and big things out of little things, and to know the difference, right? It's the old the serenity prayer that says that the essential based on knowing what you can change, knowing what you can't change, and having the wisdom to know the difference, and really taking that to heart and being patient and appreciating the process. Typically the short way is not often the right way in the end. So that I think that's the advice I would give. It probably not what most people want to hear. They're like, how do I get there now?
I love it. I'm like, we get the serenity. Any day that we can get the serenity prayer worked into an interview is a good day. So I'm in. I buy into it. Let's switch it up a bit. So I want to get into the pickle juice company. So for those that have not heard of it yet, I guess let's just start with tell us a little bit more about the company.
So it's got nothing to do with pickles. Pickle juice is a trade name like Band-Aid or Xerox or Kleenex or Thermos. But in short, it's the only product on the market that's scientifically proven to stop and prevent muscle cramps. And we do it by taking the concept of functional food and beverage and taking it from a physiological level to a neurological level to disrupt the nerve receptors that cause muscle cramping. So this product is used by athletes and weekend warriors and people who get nighttime leg cramps in the evening all over the world because it works so well. And it works so well because it doesn't have to wait for the body to absorb anything. It works at the neurological level. So if you're experiencing a muscle cramp, you consume our product and 60 seconds later, it's as if it never happened. So it's pretty wild how well it works. And we joke around here that we're really a bunch of scientists masquerading as CPG people. So we really enjoy the science and developing these things and exploring, the amazing capabilities of the human body and how to interact with it on a natural and holistic level. That's not, just a bunch of snake oil.
Tell me a little bit about kind of like the athletes that consume this, because there'll be some people watching that are looking at this and they're like, okay, so they read the headline, they're like, okay, stop muscle cramps. Like I get muscle cramps, and they're like, okay, so like, how does this apply to me? Like, tell me about the athletes and the people that like maybe don't. I feel like most people that suffer from this don't know that they don't have to suffer from it. I guess I'll start there. So maybe tell us a little bit by using something like the pickle juice, or using pickle juice in this case. Tell me a little bit more about that and like the athletes that use this.
Yeah, so we're really well known in the endurance space, like the ultra endurance space, like endurance cycling, ultra running, and some other lifestyle sports like rugby. Largely because a lot of us came from the rugby space ourselves, but it's really any athlete that gets muscle cramps, and a lot of them get predictable cramping. We find that it's more common with where athletes are surging their energy expenditures. So that if you, like we see it in soccer, fairly commonly in rugby, in certain positions where you're going like stop starting for a long period of time. I experience it in cycling when usually if I'm doing like these 100-mile rides at mile like 50 or 60, I start getting like twinging, and that's when I start taking the product to prevent that from twinging from breaking through to a cramp. But it's not just those high level athletes. It's like the kind of weekend warriors, that the folks that are just out, getting exercise. I mean, frankly, it's any environment that could contribute to experiencing a muscle cramp is one where our product can really help out. And it doesn't have to be refrigerated. So a lot of people just carry it with them. We've got about 2/3 of the NFL using the product now. The athletic trainers are just carrying it with them. We're getting more and more people from the NBA, MLB, and those like main American sports, some NHL now as well. A lot of partnerships in the NCAA. A lot of universities are buying our product now as well, and then international sports as well. We've got a few athletes competing in the Australian Open today that are using our product, including a couple of brand ambassadors. So it really is exciting about how well this product's been received. And it's kind of funny, my contemporaries, old aging athletes, are kind of like, where was this when we were competing? And when it comes to handy?
This is awesome, and I just think it's such a great success story. And obviously, in your role, seeing things from the global perspective, I mean, what is it like building this brand with these amazing other brands, right? So essentially, these partnerships like NBA, like NFL, like all these things that you're mentioning, international. Like, what does it look like to take, as you mentioned before, that a bunch of scientists posing as CPG product, I think you said distributors or something like that, and then really just getting this into the hearts and minds of both the elite athletes and world-class athletes and the weekend warriors out there, right? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a pretty unique go-to-market strategy. We sort of created this hybrid between a traditional CPG model, a mission-based model, and an experiential model. So we don't do any paid advertising. We rely entirely on sort of editorial exposure, as well as a lot of grassroots word of mouth stuff, because we really want our product to speak for itself. So a sort of very simple description of our expansion model, where we go into new territories, is we make the product available to the highest echelon of the sport in that region. So, in Benelux, it would be cycling, for instance, whereas in New Zealand, everything starts and stops with the New Zealand All Blacks, their national rugby team. And then, in India, the focus is on cricket, which actually was helped by the Australian cricket team that was using our product. So what we really try to do is start at the highest level of sport that's very high profile, make the product available. And we've never had a story where it's not immediately accepted, because we're like, look, just try it. If it works, great. If not, no harm, no foul. And then that word kind of trickles down, and we say, look, all we ask is if this works, we'll make this product available to you guys directly. We'll drop ship it. And we just ask that you acknowledge that you're using it. That's it. Nothing more. Wow. We take that leverage, and then it filters down to the masses, and then it creates organic consumer demand. And that ultimately results in, usually it starts with B2C distribution and eventually B2B distribution. So it's more of a slow rollout, but it's very much a sustainable rollout as well, which helps us, being, an emerging company that's growing so rapidly, really protect our financial assets, so that we're not just, throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall, hoping it sticks. So we're really creating genuine consumer demand before making the capital investment into a new territory.
And it seems like, and the first thing is, your product works. So people know you're going to get a cramp, and you feel that, like you said, that little twinge or something else. And you're an elite athlete in one of these, teams or markets, and you take the product, it goes away, it works. Like, that's the first basis, is that the product works. So then it's the next thing is the adoption side of things. But that product working part, I don't want to glance over that. I know you mentioned it, pretty briefly earlier about how it works, but maybe go a little bit further into the detail of how it works.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about the science of the muscle cramp. So for years, we've been led to believe that a muscle cramp is a physiological issue. But in 2010, a research team out of BYU, led by Dr. Kevin Miller, discovered that muscle cramps are actually neurological in nature. So the science is really, really new, right? Only 12 years ago did we change the idea that cramping could be a neurological response to a physiological trigger. So
Wow.
we started looking at different ways to deal with that. So we did some very anecdotal type testing and said, okay, well, we heard that pickle brine, the stuff in the jar, was used as an old remedy back in the day, and everybody just assumed it was the high sodium content that contributed to the relief of cramping. And during some really rudimentary testing, we discovered that it was actually the vinegar, not the sodium, that helped offset that cramping. So then we did some deeper diving. We did our own research, and then in 2015 came up with a formula where we identified an exact grain of acetic acid using a blend of vinegars to directly target the neurological pathway that's causing the cramp. So in short, your brain's responding to a physiological trigger, whether it be circulatory driven, electrolyte driven, stretching, hydration, whatever, and saying, hey, something's wrong. Let's kind of correct it so that pre-cramp twinging you get is actually an attempted corrective response to a physiological trigger. So essentially your brain's trying to massage it from the inside out. But the release signal can't keep up with the engaged signal. So you really just experience a hyper engagement of a muscle. When you consume our product, the same neural pathway is engaged, that prevents the signal from getting through. So a hyper simplified analogy I use is like a bunch of cars trying to get into the same tunnel. It just like slows everything up. So we're overwhelming that neural pathway with information, thus preventing the signal getting through and cramps relieved. And then we flood it with sodium so that it draws all the other electrolytes to that trouble area. So that's kind of how it works.
It's great. I love the science behind it, and that when somebody takes it, I mean, you said this word earlier, so I'll repeat it, but you said it's not snake oil. Like, it works. There's science behind it. There's like, you just have to try it. You try it, it works. And then you're probably going to be a consumer and a repeat client there. And in the case of like the sports teams and things like that, with your go-to-market strategy, I mean, it's pretty common sense that if you become like, now in retrospect, when you designed it, I mean, it's genius to me. But when you kind of explain the go-to-market strategy to me, I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, if all these athletes like it and I'm watching them and somebody's drinking it, doesn't even mean that they're necessarily like endorsing it, quote unquote, but like, because they're using it, I'm like, man, I want to use it too. Like, I suffer from some of the same things. And if I do it, I mean, it's just natural. And then also when you think about like some of these communities in sports, like sharing it, like you have friends, right? So you have your buddy that, they see you taking it. They're like, what's that? You're drinking pickle juice. Like, what? Like, I don't understand. And then you tell them, well, I mean, I'm cramping up a little bit. This helps. The first thing I feel like they're saying is, well, where's mine? Like, I want to see it. I suffer too. Like, is that kind of how this thing takes off? I'm just kind of walking through what some of that journey may look like.
Yeah, some of it's a little more deliberate and broader reaching than that. We partner with about 500 or so nonprofit charity events a year.
Oh, wow.
And each one of those charity events is a sort of activity based, like it's ultra runs, endurance bike rides. And what we'll do is we'll donate product for the aid stations. And it's a great partnership because the participants have an improved experience level. We're able to contribute to those mission-based organizations. But we're really getting the product in the hands of people when they need it, because it works so acutely, so quickly that if I can get it to you when you're cramping, I don't really have to do much more than that, because I've proven its viability right then and there. And it's obviously a lot easier to get it in the hands of people when they're cramping during exercise rather than when they're getting nighttime leg cramps. I don't want to be walking into somebody's house and be like, here.
So obviously the functional beverage market, huge, right? And I am like, how do you tend to like stand out? Like, what are some of the things that you do to really like stand out and kind of compete in that overall market?
I think it's just being transparent and genuine. We stand behind what we do. We're sort of like unapologetically single-minded. And I think that Yeah, I believe it was the president of Intuit who once said that companies are no longer what they tell people they are. Companies are what people tell other people that they are.
Yeah.
And we really stand behind that. And we are what we are. We're completely transparent. We try to make every consumer experience a positive one. Um, and I think we know what we do well, and we sort of stick to that. And we know that our go-to-market approach is it takes a more organic pathway than some of the traditional ways. And it's sort of weird talking to buyers and being like, yeah, we don't pay for marketing, we don't pay for placement, but our sell-through numbers are ridiculous. We're turning an average of like 14 to 15 units per door per week at retail without any traditional
Wow.
awareness campaigning, because we have so much repeat business, so that it's sort of taking that experiential grassroots thing and embracing it. It's all about releasing the narrative too, right? Like being comfortable with people saying what they're going to say about you, regardless of what that is. And then our job is not to control the narrative. It's to to make sure that there's not that much bad stuff to say about us. So that's where the focus is. So we roll deeper into just doing the right thing rather than just trying to convince people we're doing the right thing.
It's awesome. It's a great story. It really is. And maybe if you could just comment a little bit about the growth overall and just future plans, like as this thing keeps on continuing to pick up speed, which I have no doubt it will. Like tell me a little bit more about what the plans are for the future.
Yeah, so we built our first manufacturing facility in 2015. We've since outgrown and sold that. We opened a new manufacturing facility last year.
Awesome.
I had a few hiccups because it was middle of the freeze here in Texas, so it was really difficult to get plumbers and electricians and stuff for a while. So we had a few hiccups, but weathered that storm pretty well. So our growth last year was only like 30%, whereas for the previous 6 years or so, we were looking at about 50 to 60% growth year over year. We're in about 12,000 points of distribution in the United States now. We've got about another 5 to 7 lined up in the next couple of months. So we expect to be at about 30,000 points of distribution domestically within the next year and a half. And we're opening up Europe. We've already opened up South Africa, which is going to be experiencing a relaunch because their currency really took a big hit when COVID hit. Our Australian market's doing really, really well. Though we had some products stuck on the water for a while. Everything's manufactured here in the US. So our growth has gone pretty well from 2015, where we were in about 500 points of distribution, to the 12,000 or so we're in now, and we'll be in 30. So we're kind of doubling every single year. So that scale gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So with that, our new plant is operating about 25 to 30% capacity. With the 3 lines that we're operating now, we're adding 2 more to that, but it's all designed for future, to be future proof. We're going to get into the co-packing business. We've got a couple other products that we're going to be launching pretty soon. We've got a really cool application to CBD that we're really, really close to launching, but takes a hyper-functional approach to CBD, much like we did with our neural inhibition projects. So if your viewers want to check it out, we've got a pre-launch website at bawicbd.com. It's BAWI CBD.com, and they can kind of check out what we're doing there. But it maximizes the absorption rate of the human body while having 0% THC content, which is really neat. Yeah, and we figured out a very unintimidating delivery system, if you will. You just drink it like a shot. It's like a little bottle, and you just consume it, and it's really neat. So we're doing that. We're looking at some vasodilation stuff. We're looking at recovery product that we've done some very preliminary testing in the South African market for. And we're looking at another product that increases VO2 max using the nitrates found in beetroots. So we're concentrating the nitrates in beetroots to help improve the body's red blood cells oxygenation levels, which results in an increased VO2 max of like 3 to 5% over the course of several hours. So that's really cool once I figure out how to prevent it from fermenting. So the problem is when we started formulating the product, we realized it was turning into like a very unpleasant version of wine.
I was just going to say moonshine. What?
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great tasting, but the fermented version. So we're trying to figure out a way to stop the fermentation without, there's one of two things we can do. We could add preservatives, which we're kind of resistant to. We'd like all of our products are USD organic or certified at 100% natural, and that's kind of the pathway we want to stay down. But the other option is to hot fill it, but we're not entirely sure what that does with efficacy. So that could potentially delay our launch a little while longer. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. It's pretty exciting.
Man, that's exciting. Sounds like that factory's gonna get humming. As all these products come out, as more things happen, it's just gonna get bigger and bigger, which is exciting. So you mentioned one website, so I'll ask you to leave some information here because I want my audience to definitely go and check out Pickle Juice and the Pickle Juice Company. So what's the best place for people to connect overall? And also that website, one more time, you mentioned for the CBD product that'll be coming out soon, the pre-launch, I should say.
Yeah, so you can get more information at picklepower.com. That's we've got a bunch of links to the science and stuff there as well. Actually, we share science from competitors or people that attempted to compete. So again, we're all about transparency here. Our CBD information can be found at Bawi, BAWI, CBD.com. Or people can just come visit us in Mesquite, Texas, if they're ever in the area.
Come on. That's awesome.
It's cold right now. It'll be nicer next week.
Oh, that's great. And we'll put my team will put all the links to all the websites and things like that in the show notes so that my audience can just head on right over and check out the websites and if they're experiencing muscle cramps or any of the other things that we mentioned, I mean, definitely pick up some. So great stuff there. And to the audience, if this is the first time that you've ever been with Mission Matters, we're a platform that's all about bringing out entrepreneurs and executives and experts and really having them share their mission. Like, how do they go out and tell their story into the world? How are they adding value to the marketplace? If this is the type of content that you like or you're into, I definitely invite you to hit that subscribe button because we have many more mission-based individuals coming on the line, and we don't want you to miss any of those interviews. And Philip, really, it has been a pleasure. I really appreciate you bringing the story of the Pickle Juice Company to my audience, and I learned a lot. I hope they did as well. So thank you again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.